welcome to When the Dutch Went to Space. And yes, we made it to episode number 10. And you may have already noticed a new intro. This is episode 10 called Evolved. And more than just the intro, got an update. So starting in September 1963, and as a direct result of Michael's first trip to orbit, the powers in Europe finally get together and collaborate more intensely. And rather than dividing our individual efforts, they want to create a combined space organization that rises above the individual members. You can see Sidney Saunders taking off in an experimental airliner, the Fokker P-12. This is the plane that's supposed to reduce travel time to his homeland to roughly about 30 minutes. And in fact, the entire install got a significant upgrade. So you are looking at true volumetric clouds by BlackRock and Ballistic Fox. So go, please support him on Patreon to get access to the mods, but also just to support their amazing work. It's well worth the money. Sydney is heading over to the British Space Research Centre, which is just southeast of London, and it hosts, well, a variety of delegates actually. So we're bringing everybody there that is part of ESA. So we're starting ESA, and the idea behind it is that we get to gather and collaborate on launch vehicles and new equipment that we may need. The French are going to contribute their Viking engines, as they did in real life, and they will make up a major part of the first stages of the rocket. The British have, of course, already been working on Hydrolox engines, and we are definitely aiming to use that. At the moment they're currently locked, but they are down the pipeline very close. And in this reality, of course, the Dutch have already gotten to orbit. They also orbited the moon, but they put a human safely into orbit and got her back. A little bit behind the Americans and USSR, but still a huge achievement. So we are contributing our heavily launched site in the Moluccan, which is exactly on the equator. It's all at about 200 meters per second for free. And you can see me trying to land here. But he keeps his plane in one piece, which I call a plus. And the taxi distance is shorter than the famous polderbaan at Schiphol. So I guess he's used to this. So we still have stuff that we want to do from Texel, and we're definitely going to be doing stuff from Texel. But for now, new stuff. Next up, Bertrand Dubois on the 20th of August. You may remember I mentioned in the previous episode that their contribution in the shape of the Kuifje capsule would mean that I would include a French astronaut in our program. And Bertrand is the lucky person. He's a scientist, which means we're relying heavily on the electronics to fly into space. His mission is to run experiments in microgravity on fluid research, which I'm sure involves wine. His flight goes perfectly. Like he did pass out briefly from G's because I forgot to apply our patented solution to reduce the thrust, which I'll show in the next episode. But yeah, he's clearly enjoying himself, and he'll soon be on his way back. And in real life, this not happened until 1982, when Jean-Luc Chrétien was the first one to go to Salyut 7. Space stations are a long way from now, but I'm working on the configs for space stations and trying to bring them into the game. I might actually do it before the lunar landing. I have some ideas about Salyut, Skylab, and what role the Dutch could play as international merchants, diplomats. And the decals on the pod prove to be not really heat resistant, so you'll see stuff blowing up. But don't worry, it's just the paint and the flags that we are going to lose right about now, or maybe they've already burned off. Now he makes a bet safely. There goes the decal. And capsule number 4 is on its way back. I don't expect to get much more out of these capsules, maybe a couple of them, but it's really tough to get a long duration flight. Bertrand is really dizzy on his way back, but he's landing in the ocean. And next up on the 7th of December, Kuifje B5 is launching a Sunarti Sinaga, which is the third person to fly on a Kuifje. Sentence. Our Indonesian friend will set multiple records, so fast orbital speed, highest apogee. He's gonna spend 25 hours in this space coffin. Yeah, I love the craft. It's beautiful design, and mean, they did a great job, but it's also very limited. I might be able to push another day out of it, but I'd rather unlock a bit larger capsule. And I think for the Dutch it would be good to start designing their own capsules. Regardless, he's doing great. We complete the contracts for early manned spaceflight and finish a 3-year program in less than 6 months, which is insane and very profitable. So I actually need to close some programs that are bringing in money to start a new program. Because the USSR has begun sending probes to the moon in an attempt to soft land. With the inauguration of ESA and the new lifter under design, I think we can beat them to it. So what we need is focus and funds, like lots of funds. It's really tricky to get all your funding aligned in RP-1, especially with the new program setup. Yeah, but you can see our friend heading safely back to the planet. Stuff explodes, but there's plenty of it later on the diagram. Also, I love the new UI. I'll talk about that in a minute. I stole that actually. I stole the idea from N9 from Kind, and I'm leaning heavily on their install guide, so it's slightly different. Look at those clouds. And he's back. 25th of December 1963, Tonka A2 makes a flyby of Mars. And she's still perfectly aligned with the sun, which is props to the teams in navigation. Yet, no props for the people in flight control, because we're out of comms range. Which means we'll have a perfect flyby, and the probe will gather tons of science, but won't be able to transmit it until maybe 200 days, 100 days from now, depending on alignment. We'll get back into range, and I'm sure it's going to transmit stuff by then. But, yeah, it was a bit of a disappointment. This actually happened in real life in 1964, I think. NASA was the first to fly by Mars. Mariner 4 launched in 1964. Yeah, so they had a brief encounter and took 22 pictures. They were way better. Meanwhile, in the Moluccan at Surya Base, named after the famous Indonesian scientist, you can see something amazing. This is the Europa number 1, boasting 4 Viking engines on the lower stage. That's going to provide us with significant thrust to actually get stuff done. It's the 7th of January 1964, and this thing should be capable of lifting roughly 7 tons to LEO. I had some problems with the scatterer config, so you see me, I had to rebuild the entire island. But regardless, it is a beautiful spacecraft. It's a beautiful spacecraft. You can see the fairing is opening slightly, which made me panic slightly, and then decide, okay, well, I'll just do it very quietly, so no time acceleration in the thing itself. And let's just see if we can wedge it into orbit. Second stage is a Viking number 5, burning hypergolic fluids. Yeah. So, and the third stage was supposed to be the hydrolock stage, but since we haven't unlocked the engine, we're relying on the Delta 5 engine that the Dutch have been using. And of course, this is their contribution to this beautiful vehicle. On top, you can see a Cruyff kickstage, and you can see the Leuten 1. Leuten was a Indonesian astronomer, Dutch and Indonesian astronomer that relocated to the US. And there's a planet named there's an exoplanet named after him, a star in a comet. So quite an important guy. Well, you look at this beautiful new UI called HUD Replacer. And it's using a dark theme. And you can see me use the RCS to get a good encounter with the moon. And the probe Leuten 1 is of course an observational probe. It is using a gamma engine on the capture and lower stage, because the first iteration of the gamma engine is not that efficient, but it has unlimited relights. And that is super helpful. So you can see me burn off about 800 meters per second if we get everything perfectly aligned. We need to de-approach, of course. And then we are heading down to the first place we can find on the moon, which is I don't know, just somewhere, at least if it's in sunlight and in a good view of the Earth. So we're on final approach, we drop the final descent stage, and we have a number of thrusters on the bottom that are iterating like crazy, trying to get the correct speed, which is descending perfectly. And it's hovering because I took some time to figure out the proper descent speed, which turned out to be 1.5 meters per second. But I don't discover that until light number 3. So I guess the computer is just hovering above the terrain, trying to figure out where to land. And yeah, we lost a thruster, but any landing you can walk away from. A great landing, and this is where we discovered that we forgot to pack any science instruments. Yeah. So on the 5th of April, we of course have to redo this time with a proper probe. So we're launching loiter number 2 in the 5th of April 1964. The Americans are still years away of soft landing something on the moon. The Soviets, I don't remember the exact date, they were before the Americans, so it was 66 or 67, but we're way ahead of anybody in this particular universe. I love the design of the new rocket. It's based on Europa 3, Ariane 3, and so I found some schematics online and the dimensions should be pretty much identical, except of course for the third stage. And you can see me trying to maneuver my way around it and do the course correction in order to get closer to the moon. It's a lot of wiggling around with the RCS, and as soon as everything is aligned, we go to the tracking station, which allows me to keep my solar panels oriented. It's a kind of cheaty thing to do, but you put the craft in a spin, and once you hit 90% of exposure, you just go to the tracking station. The battery will keep charged. Regardless, we have entered the moon, and we are actually approaching the far side of the moon. But remember, in episode number 7, I think it was number 7, we launched a couple of orbiter probes to the moon, Chandra A2 and B2, and they are still orbiting the moon, and they turn out to be perfect relays. And when I noticed this, I thought, well, this is an opportunity that is too great to pass up on, and because the orbits sort of perfectly aligned, Chandra 2 was rising in orbit, had a good connection with Earth, a good connection with our spacecraft. As you can see, I thought this is the moment where we have to land. And we are targeting this huge white spot. I tried to look it up on the atlas. It is not the Sea of Moscow, it's also not the Sea of Korolev, but somewhere in between. It's a big crater. Now later turned out it was just the Midland, which was kind of a bummer. I miss ScanSat. ScanSat used to create these beautiful biome maps, making it easier for you to figure out where to land, but they also suck a lot of memory, so it's no longer recommended. And you can see me hovering again, trying to find a flat landing site. At least that's what we're telling ourselves, and of course pulsating on and off, and a little bit too much on me to go back into the skies. But we've found our final location. We are about to settle down and become the first scientific probe to land on the moon. See you in the next episode.